Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Latinas Power Talk. We are so excited to talk to today's guest as she is revolutionizing the way that Latina women are thinking and going out there and being entrepreneurs. So without further ado, let's introduce our next guest, Sonia Saunders.
Thank you,
from
ladies.
Mujeron Movement.
No, thank you so much for the intro. I feel like every time I get to share my story, it just kind of sparks that motivation, that inspiration again that we all need when we're building something from scratch, because it's hard, ladies. It's hard.
Yes, it really is. But you tell us a little bit about Mujeron Movement, because I'm sure many of you guys have heard about it, but for those who don't know, it really is, like I said, revolutionizing kind of like the way that women think of themselves and view themselves. So tell us a little bit about that.
No, I love that you say that, because the word mujerón, si lo pensamos en español, mujerón, you've heard it being described for women that are like thick, or es un mujerón, right? Like she walks in and she just takes space. But a lot of times it was like used to describe a woman when she's just like bigger. And I feel like we've kind of changed that narrative, and we've given this definition of like un mujerón es alguien que lucha, sigue sus sueños, but at the same time she uplifts the people that are helping her, that are surrounding her, that are cheering for her as well. So I was 19, and I remember in high school there was a teacher that told me, Sonia, you are great at writing, you love to be in front of people, you should be a TV reporter. Like, I think you would do great at that. And I remember walking out of class like, okay, that's what I'm gonna be. Like, I want to be on TV.
Yeah.
And after that, that dream of being on TV just like grew and grew and grew. And this is the time where Belleza Latina, Nuestra Belleza Latina, that's on Univision, had came out. And I mean, I don't know about if you guys watched
we
Univision.
watched it. I think it was such like a big part of like Latino culture since its beginning. Of like, we sat down and watched it every Sunday, and we were like, oh, who's gonna win?
Especially those of us that were into like the beauty, like the entertainment, that kind of industry. To me, it was like, oh my God, I can do that. I remember watching like Los Retos y, the conductoras on there, and just like mimicking them on the mirror, and just being like, okay, I can do this. So I went out, did the audition, did that long line. My mom slept on the sidewalk, like the whole thing. And they end up saying yes. They're like, okay, it was like 2,000 women in LA. And out of those 2,000 women, they chose 20 of us to go to Miami. And obviously there was like different auditions throughout the country. But I remember just feeling like, oh, here I go. But one of the things that came up in that experience was, Sonia, you need to lose weight if you want to be a part of this industry. Like, if you want to be successful, you need to lose weight. I even remember a producer saying, te van a comer viva cuando llegues a Miami si no bajas de peso.
And how old were you?
I was 19.
19. And how did you take that, like, at such young of an age?
Yeah, so it was super hard. I think that was the first time in my life where I felt like I wasn't good enough. And it was such a pivotal moment in my life because, like you said, right, up until this point, I had felt like I had the talent, or I could bring this dream to life. But those comments really made me feel like, ooh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not meant for this dream. But somehow they continued to say, yes, okay, yeah, we're going to do this. So the condition was you need to lose weight in this next month before you get to Miami. And the go-getter in me was like, okay,
I'm gonna do
challenge accepted, right? So I moved to LA. At that time, I was already living in Phoenix. My brother, who was a boxer at the time, lived in LA. So I moved back with him because he was going to help me lose weight. I mean, if you know, boxers can lose weight like this. Like, that is their thing, right?
They cut weight all the time.
Right, they have to make weight. So that was a challenge for me and my brother. Like, let's do it. And at the time, I had an ex-boyfriend that was also in boxing. So between them two, like, the diet and the exercise and the jumping and the, shadow boxing and all of these things that I remember, like, not even being able to eat rice because they're like, well, if you really want to make weight, like, we were like weighing every other day. And I remember one day comí arroz y subí, and they were like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to eat rice if you really want to make this weight. That was it's been such a huge part of my story, because it's something that for years I've struggled with up until I became a mom. Like, it was something that I still ingrained in me when I did my TV career, when I tried to do like fitness, and all of these things. Like, it translated so much because I didn't heal from it at that point. So I'm going through this experience, right? Me pasan, me voy a Miami, llego ahí, and I remember people seeing me and being like, wow, she did lose weight. I had lost like 12 pounds. When I got there, you would have thought like, wow, I look great, I lost weight, I was gonna be all up in the cameras, and the opposite happened. I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like they were criticizing me every time. Like, I felt just out of place. And I remember even within the contestants, I don't know if it was because of my audition where they mentioned, right, that I was the la gordita or whatever, or because of the way I looked, but I felt like people were already like signaling me as like just certain comments, right? Like, I remember girls making comments about like, she might look like she can't work out, but she's actually in there putting in some work. Or there were certain girls that weren't allowed to eat rice after lunch. You know what I mean? Like, certain things that I understand, like, sometimes you're in this competition and you put yourself in those places. But I felt as a 19-year-old, it was kind of hard to just take that in and, like, be in a place where you felt like you weren't good enough.
How did you get out of it feeling like so much more empowered? Because you came out empowering on the other side.
It took a lot of time. So I'm in this competition, right? And like, I hear the comments, but there was a specific comment that really like marked me. And it was, we were in conversation and we were talking about like, who could potentially be the winner. And one of the girls said, yeah, pero no van a escoger a un mujerón. And I remember her using like mujerón as like, no van a escoger a una mujer grande, you know what I mean? And I knew she was referring to me, and I remember just feeling like I'm so ready to go home. And I love that I was already into journaling, and I journaled the day before they were going to eliminate us. And I remember just writing like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I want to go home.
Wow.
I don't belong here. Like, I don't feel confident. Like, I don't feel like this is where I want to be. And sure enough, the next day, they eliminated us, and
Did you knew this was coming?
I felt it just because if you are in the TV world, and I think this was the first time I was exposed on the production side. I think once I worked in TV, like, I understood the moves. But even when you're a part of a production, you understand that there's certain people that they favor because there's more footage of them. And you start to realize, okay, well, they're not really, putting a lot of emphasis on me, or they're not really asking me to do certain things. And there was girls that you would see them like introducing them to the sponsors, right? And that's already like, okay, they're investing in this production, so they want to meet the people that are están destacando. And I honestly had already been checked out, and I think if you know anything about like just going after your goals, mindset is probably the number one thing that helps you. So I feel like already I was in this space that I knew it was coming, but I was like really in this bittersweet moment of like, I want to go home and I can't wait, but also like my dream just slipped out of my hands. So fast forward 7 years later, right? I've already gotten my degree in communications, media studies.
I remember you were working at the Azteca
Yes.
and you had like an entertainment show.
Yes.
So the station then closed?
So I was working there for 3 years, and I was like la milusos that they, say in Spanish. Like,
Oh, I remember you said that
yes,
actually.
you wear all the hats.
Weren't
So-
you in sales, but also like talent? At
Yes,
some
so
point?
I was in marketing. I like ran all of the events, pretty much did all of like the grassroots stuff for the station. I was the assistant to the general manager as well.
wow.
And I was on camera. Any like type of commercials that would come up, that last minute I would do. I even helped launch that TV show. Like, from how are we going to sell this? How are we going to monetize it? Who are we going to sell it to? You know, all of the things. So now looking back, I'm like, wow, God is so great. Like, He put me in that specific place. And at that point, I had knocked doors on Telemundo, Univision, right? Because as someone that you're looking for a TV career, like, you want these bigger stations to hire you. But for me, it was like this little station, you know, it's like kind of like the mom and pop of TV, you know what I mean? And I just was able to learn the whole other side of like sales. I was in the sales meetings, helping them like with, you know, all of those things. And then on the other side of like being on camera as well. So
I think like God, you mentioned God, and I think God prepares you for what you're destined to do.
Yeah.
And I think like getting a taste of everything, like you did sales, which you didn't go to school for sales, but you had that experience, and now you
Right.
probably apply it to your business.
Absolutely,
And like kind of business
100%.
administration type of work and everything. So it probably served as a stepping stone to get
Oh,
where you're
yes.
at now.
Like, even now, thinking back, like, we have these annual Mujeron Movement shoots, which translate exactly the type of shoots that we would have for the show to, like, launch something, right?
you kind of
Like,
learn from it, right? Like this worked there, let's not do this because it didn't work for them type of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that translate now into my business. But so I'm working at Azteca, right? And then in 2018, I believe, they come, you know, you start hearing talks of like maybe there's some type of shift.
Something's going
The
on.
company had been sold to another company, and like we're kind of up in the air of like, okay, what's next? And the head bosses come down and they tell us on a Thursday, hey, tomorrow's your last day. We were all in our feelings, emotional, and like we had worked so hard to like launch the show and just build the TV station up until where it was now, that it was such a hard thing to do. And to just hear that here is another opportunity that just slipped through my hand, through my fingers, you know
Right.
what I mean? And my parents have their own business, so my dad was like, you know what, just come work for me. Like, just, you know, you can, you know, our parents,
Yeah.
our Mexican parents are just like, no te preocupes, like,
Yeah,
come
we
work
got
with
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here I go to work for my dad, and Nuestra Belleza Latina comes back. And this time they're like, hey, sin talla, sin límites, sin excusas. It was like, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you look like.
That's
like,
right. That's when we started to see a little more of inclusion of like
Yes.
age and like people who were mothers too,
Different
which
shades,
actually
yeah.
before was like, oh my God, you're a mom. They kind of
Right.
disqualified you after.
Yeah, so that comes around, and I was just like, wow, this is my shop. You know, I've already worked on TV. I already feel confident in front of the camera. They don't even care if I'm bigger or not, you know what I mean? Here I go, my husband and I were like, okay, he had an interview for a job in California. It was a remote job, but he had to go interview in California. And then I was going to this audition. And it was like such a moment for us, like, oh, we're making moves, like, you know, we're going to do this trip, and he lands this job. I get the audition. Like,
Wow.
it was just like we were
Everything
on
was
this high, like,
aligning,
yeah,
yes.
we're about to make things happen. And I remember just feeling like this is the second chance that you don't often get. So here I go, and I'm like, there has to be a bigger purpose with me being here one more time. And like, what is that, you know? And I
Right.
remember that word mujeron. And I created a shirt. I put Mujeron on my chest, and I'm like, here I go. I'm going to represent the Sonia that at 19 was told, you're not good enough to be here. Or, you know, all the women that at some point we've been told, you don't have the height, you don't have the look, you have an accent, you know, all of these different things that we are told. And I think that for me, it was just closing that circle, that cycle of like, what if I would have lost more weight? What if I would have, you know, been more confident in front of the camera? I feel like for me, it was like, I got to close that circle, like that cycle of what if. And yeah, after that, you know, I came back with this shirt, and I felt like it was a bigger thing. So I started these little meetups. First, we started
In
with
coffee
the
shops,
hike.
right?
Yeah, we started with the hike. And then we started it in coffee shops, and, women started to come to me like, hey, I want to teach women how to manage their finances. I want to teach women how to show up, with more confidence.
Right.
Or I want to help women with these different things. And I slowly started to create these events that were very small meetups. And that's kind of how we started to kick off. I started the podcast. Then I launched the coaching program after I had gone through numerous coaching programs myself. And I knew it was something that I guess I started to think, how did I come from this really horrible place to now being able to show up as a leader or show up as someone that's, creating a movement. And I always went back to self-development and just the mindset work and those really deep questions and that really deep work that we have to do. Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided to create the coaching program and now the annual event. So it's just kind of
the annual conference. It's kind of just snowballed into one thing after the other and continuous growth. And I know how hard you push for the next thing and just helping women. I think that's your heart just wants to help women. But do you ever sit back and realize shit, this is, I started a whole movement that's now touched the whole country and transformed lives of women. I was sitting in that conference and so many women that you coach are now business owners, are now coaches themselves, and you were part of that change. How does that make you feel?
Sometimes it's surreal, you know what I mean? I feel what started as this shirt that said Mujeron, and just being able to impact and somehow help people on their own journey has been just out of my wildest dream. Not even in my wildest dreams did I think I would impact in that way. And I think for me, the big circle moment that I've had is when I was trying to create this career on TV. It was because I wanted to somehow impact, inspire,
Make a difference. Right.
And
it wasn't for the fame. It wasn't for the money. It was because you were just trying to make a difference. Poner tu granito de arena.
Todo a su tiempo y de la forma que debe de ser, right? Mm-hmm. It all happens the way it has to happen. And I think you can say I had a failed TV career, but truly it was just a redirection to where I wanted to actually be.
Well, thank you so much for joining the Latinas Power Talk podcast. We loved hearing your story, and we want to see you continue growing and seeing where this will take national.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for watching today's podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at Latinas Power Talk, and we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.